next, and slides will be distributed after the call. This is an FYI. So some of us are seasoned preteen vaccine week campaign participants, but some of us are new. So I wanted to take a moment to clarify what the purpose of these calls is. The calls give us the opportunity to organize our planning efforts and keep the process on track. We all have so many duties that we're responsible for. It's easy for things to get backburnered. So we're here to support each other through the planning process to ensure that Preteen Vaccine Week happens and is a success. We share ideas with other local health departments and partners, such as immunization coalitions and health plans, about effective campaign promotion and preteen vaccination strategies, and troubleshoot common hurdles. We learn about tools and resources, and then through a unified approach, we amplify our message about the importance of preteen vaccines. This is especially important when it comes to the social media component of our campaign, which is a growing part of our campaign. So now that I've spoken about why we are all here on this webinar today, I'd like to hear who's on the line. So we'll do a quick roll call if you just want to say your name, local health department or organization, and how many years you've been involved with Preteen Vaccine Week. So I'll turn it over to the participants.
This is Tanya Schultz from Modoc County, and I've been involved for about maybe 7 years.
Okay, good morning.
This is Dolly Hopper. I'm from Tehama County Public Health, and I've been involved with public health for about 3 years.
Great, thank you.
Bev Hansen, Ventura County, probably over 10 years.
Hi, Bev.
Hi.
Heather Griffith, San Bernardino County, and I've been involved for about 6 years.
Lupe Ledesma, Ventura County Public Health, with over 10 years as well.
Steve Oates from Kern County, plus 10 years.
Kristen Edler, San Luis Obispo, 3 years.
Ashley Diaz, San Bernardino County, 1 year.
Kirsten Forsland, Trinity County, 1 year.
Kristen Burnett, Contra Costa County, 1 year.
Alice Holgain, Riverside County, 3 years.
Karen Margarefta, LA Care, 1 year.
Rosa Maria Leal, Blaine County.
Danielle Heiser, Marin County, 5 years.
How can we?
Okay, they are quiet, so I don't think that's quite everybody, but that gives us a good idea of who's on the line and mostly health departments.
This is Wendy Berger. I was having trouble getting on for some reason. I had to call in.
Oh, thanks, Wendy. Thanks for joining us. It sounds like a good representation. Oh, somebody else going to say something?
Sorry, yeah. And Amaka Obidegu from HealthNet is here, and I think I missed what the question was in the beginning.
Oh, that's okay. We were just doing a little roll call. I wanted to hear who was on the line and what organization you're calling from, and then how many years you've been on the campaign. But, yeah, I was going to just move on, but thank you for all those introductions. It's nice to hear that we have local health departments and also some health plans and immunization coalitions, so really good participation on this. As we move through the calls, remember that your ideas and experiences matter, and we want to hear from you, so please don't be shy. Like I said at the beginning, please remember not to put us on hold, and it may be best to mute your line if you aren't speaking, just so we don't get too much background noise, but I don't want to dissuade anybody from speaking up throughout the presentation. So interrupt me at any time if you have a question or a comment. And we will.
How do you mute *6?
I'm not sure on WebEx.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, *6. I'm getting a nod across the room, star 6. So we'll start with a brief look back at Preteen Vaccine Week 2018, including the results of the survey that were sent out after the observance. This may help those of you who are new to the observance know how we promote Preteen Vaccine Week at the local level. So Preteen Vaccine Week 2018 brought participation from over 25 local health departments and partners, which was more than the year prior, so that's great. On last year's planning calls, we heard from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention to get an update on meningococcal disease and vaccine recommendations. We also invited health-related communication expert Dr. Heather to speak about ways to improve social media messaging and make messages more appealing to our target audience. These resources were most utilized during the 2018 campaign. And so those of you who are new may want to take a look just so you know what your colleagues across the state have been using in the past to promote Preteen Vaccine Week. And this slide gives us some insight into where a lot of campaign activities are occurring in the community. So most materials are promoted in the health department, schools, provider offices, health fairs, partner organizations such as local immunization coalitions and local health plans and others that are on that little list off to the right. And then other primarily includes libraries. A lot of people do displays at local libraries as well. So to the question about resources you want or need that you don't feel we offer, we received requests for resources for schools to encourage preteen vaccinations. So I want to mention that we have this flyer, the vaccines for your preteen, in the upper right-hand corner, which has been updated to reflect the new 2-dose chickenpox requirement. I'll let you all know that what we have in our resource right now, it talks about chickenpox vaccine, but it doesn't talk about the new requirement for 2019. So I'm trying to see kind of what to do about that. So it's, right now, if you were to place orders, I think it wouldn't have the mention of the requirement. I just want to be forthcoming about that. But it is on the electronic version if you're sharing materials electronically. We also have the Hey, Did You Know poster. I don't have that pictured here, but that's specifically designed for use in schools to promote HPV vaccine. And then in the campaign kit, we do have a template letter from the school nurse to parents, and this might be really useful this year in particular because of the new chickenpox vaccine requirement. Just curious, I don't know how many of you have already muted yourselves, but I wanted to know how many of you are aware of the new requirement for entering to 7th grade for varicella vaccine. Okay, well, if you weren't already aware, you're learning about it now. So I think that's going to be a good opportunity for us to leverage. Then, of course, we have the Shots for School website that I have listed here. And keep an eye for new resources related to school vaccination requirements on that website, too. We had 2 other requests or additional requests around these categories, resources around safety and HPV vaccine and also PSAs. And I'm going to talk about those on the next slide. So we do have this flyer that talks about vaccines recommended for preteens and teens, including safety information for each vaccine. This is available electronically, but not in print, which is why you won't see it on the order form. And then CDC has fact sheets specific for each vaccine listed here. So I hyperlinked them all. So they have separate ones for HPV, flu, meninge, and Tdap. Then they also have general vaccine and vaccine safety information for parents, and then HPV vaccine-specific information for parents as well. So I have those specifically linked, and then a general page under materials where you can look at a selection of teen vaccine materials, and then also the place you can go to order them directly from the CDC. So while we're talking about HPV vaccine, I do still hear that many providers are unaware of or confused by the new HPV vaccine schedule, or the not so new. It's been 2 years now, I think. But this may be a helpful resource to distribute to your provider offices. So I just wanted to remind you all that this timing chart does exist in our resources. So I also want to talk about PSAs. So we're working on adapting these PSAs that come from the Texas Department of Public Health for our use here in California. We're hoping to offer these video PSAs that are hyperlinked here, as well as radio PSAs. So that's a common request I get that I'm trying to fulfill. I'm going to do my best to not mess up and show you all an example of one of them.
Honey. I'm fine, okay?
There's no vaccine for her trauma, but there's one for HPV that helps prevent cervical cancer. Ask your doctor.
Hopefully y'all could hear that okay. What do you think?
It's a little confusing.
It's a little confusing?
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious she's got some psychosocial stuff going on, but then they talk about HPV. I don't know.
I'll show the other one, meningitis.
Oh, thanks, Mom. There's no vaccine for chore avoidance, but there's one for meningitis. Ask your doctor.
Okay. So you may feel the same thing on that one, maybe not the psychosocial part, but I don't know. Does anybody else think it's confusing?
I don't think it's confusing. I think they're good.
Oh, good. I'm glad you like them.
This is Steve from Kern County. They remind me of my grandkids, so they're pretty straight on.
Oh, good.
It catches your attention.
Yeah, my first impression of these when I saw them is just, they're, one, really well done. Like, the production is great on these. And it's just, they're cute and they're a little more lighthearted. So oftentimes our messaging is so serious around vaccines, and it's just nice to see it, just lightened up a little bit with these. So if you don't like them, you don't have to use them, but if you do like them, we are working on adapting them.
Slovenia.
Pardon me? Oh, maybe that wasn't for us. I didn't quite hear that comment. But yes, so we will have these both for radio and video, which hopefully we can use over social media. As you can tell, they're very short in length, so they're pretty ideal for use like that. So one of the things that I always ask in the survey at the end of the campaign is lessons learned, and year after year, most respondents say that they wish they'd planned earlier. So hopefully that can serve as a reminder to each of us on this call to start planning now. In just a few months, Preteen Vaccine Week 2019 will be upon us. A couple of you shared that schools are a good venue to implement Preteen Vaccine Week, especially with a new requirement for 7th grade. We have a good opportunity to partner with schools to have them promote all preteen vaccines as they inform parents of the new requirement. And as you are well aware, because there were a number of surveys about it, thanks to your feedback, we've moved the Preteen Vaccine Week observance from February to March. Here at the Immunization Branch, we really do take your suggestions and requests seriously, and I hope that our response to resource requests and challenges you voice, such as the timing of the campaign, demonstrates that. So now moving on to Preteen Vaccine Week 2019. So this table shows the Healthy People 2020 objectives for adolescent immunizations in the very first row that we're looking at, followed by the National Immunization Survey team data that comes from the CDC for the U.S. and California below that. I've included 2017 and 2016 for comparison, 2017 being the most recent year for which data is available. So if you look at the columns, we see at least 2 doses of varicella, at least 1 dose of Tdap, at least 1 dose of meningitis vaccine, and then 2 separate sections for females and males, specifically looking at HPV vaccination coverage. So when we look at California data for 2017, we see that we are just a little behind the U.S. for varicella, Tdap, and meningococcal vaccine coverage. However, of these 5 Healthy People 2020 objectives we see at the top, we have surpassed the objective for Tdap and meningococcal, so that's great. Our best performance in comparison with the rest of the nation is with HPV vaccination, and we are above the national average, which is fabulous. But we still have a ways to go to meet the Healthy People 2020 objectives. We're at 60% coverage for females, and we're trying to get to 80, and 47 for males, also trying to get to 80. And of course, we strive to protect as many kids as we can against HPV-related cancers. I did make a note on the side that if you combine the male and females for HPV vaccination coverage, we have 53% UTD, which stands for up-to-date, combined. The reason that we see up-to-date on here is that the NIS survey is looking at 13 to 17 years, so some of those are just getting 2 doses, and some of those kids are getting 3 doses, so that's why they just use an up-to-date rate rather than looking at number of doses. So kind of expanding upon that 53% coverage, I wanted to talk about the estimated impact of that up-to-date rate with HPV vaccine. So in California, we've got 1.5 million 13 to 17-year-olds. And based on an impact estimate that comes from the CDC, that for every 1,000 preteens vaccinated, we can prevent about 7 HPV-associated cancers, we are successfully averting about 5,505 cancers based on the vaccination rate that we have currently, which is great. But it also means that we are failing to avert almost 5,000 additional cancers. So I just wanted to show this to remind you all the importance of what we're doing. We are preventing cancers when we talk about HPV vaccines specifically. So what's new for Preteen Vaccine Week 2019? So now it's in March instead of February. So it'll be observed March 3rd through the 9th, 2019. That does also coincide with International HPV Awareness Day. We also have a lot added in the campaign kit and our materials about the new varicella requirement for entry into 7th grade. So in addition to the 1 dose of Tdap in 2019-2020 school year, they will also need 2 doses of varicella. Most kids would have gotten those earlier in their childhood, so it shouldn't really be that big of a change. But because there's no checkpoint earlier in elementary school, that's why it's showing up on the 7th grade requirement. New, we also have shot-by-shot stories incorporated into the talking points. If you remember, the talking points talk about preteen vaccines in general, but then also breaks it down by specific vaccine. And so within each specific vaccine, we have a shot-by-shot story featured. New approach to social media this year, which we'll be talking about later in the call, and then also the new PSAs that are being created, which I gave you a little preview of. So the campaign kit, which I've set up to be uploaded to the Preteen Vaccine Week page on the CDPH website, and I have those linked below. If you go right now, you might not see the new materials on there because it's sort of in process, but they should be up there later today. So the campaign kit includes an action plan that breaks down planning into steps, including ordering materials, outreach to providers, promotional activities, and dissemination materials to partner organizations. This might be really helpful for those of you that are new. There's also the order form template. So there's another one that you all use that I'll show later in the presentation, but this is the one that you can use to distribute to your partners. If you want to send it to schools and ask them to place an order with you, we just build a template form for you to use. The talking points, which I've talked a lot about, and these should help you engage the public, media, and other organizations. We'll talk about suggested activities on the next slide. And you are also welcome to adapt the suggested press release to gain more awareness in your local area. Then there's some e-blasts that can be used in outreach to providers and school staff to promote the preteen vaccines and get them on board with the campaign. You can also use the template letter from school nurse to parents with schools to help them communicate about Tdap, the new varicella requirement, and other recommended vaccines to parents, and finally an appendix with some helpful links. So within the campaign kit, there's a section on suggested activities. They're ranked from low to high in terms of resource utilization. This slide just shows a few examples. When we hear from Dr. Heather in just a minute, we'll learn how our social media campaign strategy will be organized in a similar way this year, so you can pick your level of engagement with our audience. So now we will dive deeper into talking about social media and Preteen Vaccine Week. So over the last few years, we've been placing more and more emphasis on the social media component of the campaign. Social media is increasingly used for public health promotion, and it holds a lot of promise for public health education because it can cross barriers and facilitate interaction with our audience in ways that other types of outreach cannot. And it's really essential that public health have a strong voice over social media. The anti-vax community is small, but they are very loud, especially on social media. And so we really have to be putting positive, encouraging, and normalizing pro-vaccine messaging out there. And furthermore, most, if not all of us, are operating with fewer and fewer resources. And so through social media, we can promote and participate in the campaign, check the scope of work box, but also effectively reach our audience, potentially with less demand of our precious resources. But we have to ensure that we're doing it well so that our messages are being read and shared and responded to, and to make sure that we're actually engaging our audience. So today we're going to hear from Dr. Heather at UC Davis and some of your local health department peers to learn more about social media communications. So I'd like to introduce Dr. Heather. She's a faculty member in the Department of Communication at the University of California, Davis. Her research interests focus on health communications, social media, and campaigns. Dr. Heather conducts research that yields practical insights and builds bridges with practitioners. Prior to her academic career, she worked for more than a decade with a variety of private organizations managing and implementing advertising, marketing, and public relations campaigns. Also with her is Christopher, or CJ. He's a doctoral student in the Department of Communication, also at UC Davis, and he is primarily interested in health and science communication. And his current research focuses on health promotion, social networks, and persuasive technologies. So with that, I will turn it over to Heather and CJ, and I'll advance the slides for you. Just let me know. Oh, and Heather, I think you might be muted. I'm going to unmute you. Or, yes, there you go. Heather, you want to try again?
Can you
hear
me?
You go. Yes.
Okay, great. Is the echo okay?
Yes, you sound great.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, great. Well, thank you for this opportunity. I think what we're going to do, I'll sort of introduce some of our thoughts and the research with regards to social media and public health. And we wanted to sort of present some of the research about how public health has been using social media, and then we'll pivot a little bit more to some concrete suggestions for this year's campaign, or for the 2019 campaign. So I'll begin, and then Christopher, my colleague, will also join in the conversation as well. Next slide. Okay, great. So as Jane sort of already introduced, there is a lot of opportunity for public health to use social media, and there's a lot of advantages that we're going to sort of detail in a moment. But what the research tends to say is that, we know that one of the greatest advantages of social media is the opportunity they provide for engagement and interaction. So unlike sort of traditional legacy media, which was all about sort of pushing messaging out, social media, its greatest advantage is that conversation, that dialogue. But research tends to overwhelmingly indicate that public health is not leveraging social media as well as it could to have that engagement, to have that interaction. And we know why. There's a couple of good reasons. And next slide. So I think actually just to sort of wrap that one up, that's sort of our thinking going into this is how can we leverage social media more effectively to engage audiences, to encourage participation, rather than relying on it for one-way messaging. And now I'm going to turn it over to my colleague CJ, who's going to talk about some of the benefits and risks actually of social media.
Okay, hello everyone. So there are a multitude of benefits that social media brings to help promotion. So first off, social media is cost effective. In comparison to traditional mass media, TV, radio, newspapers, even flyers, social media has little to no cost. You have the ability to disseminate as a bunch of messages at once without having to pay for increasing costs and all that. Well-prepared messages from established organizations can disseminate information without having to actively pay for and distribute throughout a population. So next up, 69% of all adults 18 plus to 65 and over have at least one social media platform. And that number is even higher for age groups, the teenage age group, the young adult population, and the adult population. We see that the majority of people are on social media, and so it provides health organizations with the opportunity to reach a large portion of our target population. Even when taking socioeconomic status into account, half of all adults have at least one social media platform. So moreover, social media can easily be tailored to specific target populations. Messages are easily and readily editable, and new content can be posted focusing on specific groups or individuals. So especially for the local health department, you have the ability to choose those specific messages that would fit your community. Social media also allows direct communication from public health to the public. It allows quick dissemination of information to the public without having to go through other channels to have that direct contact with your population. In addition to direct communication, social media allow peer-to-peer communication. So it creates opportunities for youth to interact with health organizations and for peers to interact with each other. And then lastly, social media provides opportunities for engagement and interaction. And so we'll discuss the differences of engagement later. But again, engagement may predict attitude and behavior change. So this is why engagement is very necessary and important thing to discuss when talking about social media and So, can you go to the next slide?
Sure. I just want to take a moment. I think somebody might be eating and sneezing, so if you all don't mind muting your lines, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. So, yes, in addition to benefits, there's also some risks involved with social media that I think everyone is all aware about. One is that the online environment has so many stimuli that are on these web pages. They're very cluttered, and so this busy environment may distract or not show the most important information might be lost within these web pages. That's one of the challenges with online media in general. Moreover, when we're posting on social media, other people can post, right? This peer-to-peer communication, which has its advantages, but also we cannot control what other people post. And so they may post something that may be inaccurate or distracting from our overall main message. So that kind of goes in hand with message distortion. Our messages may be distorted based on what other people may, how they may interpret it, how they may respond to it, etc. There's also this blurred boundary between experts and consumers. Because we're online, we don't see this separation of who's the expert and who is the population at hand. And then lastly, social media can be very resource intensive, right? It takes a lot of time to create these messages, to monitor these accounts, and maybe even with people that are not responding with accurate information, it takes a lot of time to respond and make sure that that information is corrected. But although social media do have these risks, academic public health journals, which are those practical journals, push for health organizations to utilize all capabilities of social media, as social media is inevitable in today's digital society. Okay, so I'll pass it back to Dr. Heather.
Great. Okay, we thought we would take a moment also to just discuss some of the trends that CJ and I have observed across some exemplary campaigns. And we actually recently finished writing a book chapter which goes into campaigns, looking at campaigns that have had a lot of success in terms of engaging their audiences at the highest level. And typically when we think of sort of the highest level of engagement, it's what we call user-generated content, where you get your audiences involved and have them actually creating new content, whether it's through text or uploading photos or uploading videos. And that's sort of one of the signs that you've been really effective, when you can get your audience to engage at that level. So we did some miniature sort of case study analyses. We looked at, of course, the Ice Bucket Challenge, which is probably one of the most outstanding campaigns, health-related, of course, nonprofit for fundraising. But in terms of generating engagement, they had huge numbers in terms of how many people actually participated and uploaded videos. We also looked at the Movember campaign. I'm not sure how many are familiar with that. The Movember sort of combines the idea of men's health during the month of November, and their tagline was changing the face of men's health. And what they actually, sort of their call to action was encouraging men to grow mustaches for the month of November, to sort of encourage conversations around the issue of men's health. And then we looked at sort of a more niche campaign called It Gets Better Project, which was targeted towards the LGBT community and encouraging members of that community to participate in conversations and community building online, also by posting their video stories of their, the challenges they've faced, but also how they've overcome it. And when we looked at across these campaigns, some of the things that stood out to us in terms of their similarities was they all try to focus on positive emotion, right? They all sort of had a fun call to action. They encouraged, like the It Gets Better Project, even though they wanted the community members to talk about the challenges they faced, they did encourage everybody to sort of focus on sort of the optimism, if they could, in terms of uploading their videos and the messages that they had to communicate. The Ice Bucket Challenge, we all saw how that how everyone sort of engaged in it at their own level and got sort of really silly with it and sort of added their own take and had fun with it. The same thing with the Movember campaign. There's a lot of fun that the participants are having in terms of changing their appearance. So each of these campaigns had sort of fun, user-generated content. They were optimistic and positive. Research does suggest that enjoyable content associated with pleasant emotions is more likely to be shared than content that highlights unpleasant emotions. So we see positive affect. We also see through these campaigns a sense of community building, that each campaign was working to support and facilitate community building among its participants and people who were involved. They did feel like they were part of a broader movement or a broader community. So thinking about how we can bring people together on social media to be social is important as well. They all had celebrity involvement, which is just sort of one of the characteristics we noted, that celebrities got involved sort of on their own, which, of course, every time you have celebrities get involved, that brings more attention to the campaign as well. And then the last point that we noted is that they did all provide an opportunity for people to get involved and to be creative with their messaging. So in whatever way people wanted to get involved, whether it was sort of growing the mustache for Movember or the ice bucket, we saw a lot of opportunity for creative expression. So those were some of the themes across those exemplar campaigns. And when we were looking at campaigns, one thing that struck us in the published literature, it is hard to find a lot of these exemplar campaigns that really made a big effect in terms of reaching people and getting people involved at the highest level. So it is challenging, but possible. Next slide. Okay, so what we've done, and you can advance one more, please. At UC Davis, I've been working with my colleagues, and we've been trying to help in terms of providing suggestions for strategy, right? How can we take the social media aspect of the campaign sort of up another level, but really sort of I think what our goal here is to provide resources, to provide options. And so last year we spent a lot of effort sort of thinking about messaging and different hashtags that we might consider. this year we sort of stepped back and we wanted to provide sort of a more global framework in terms of thinking about engagement on social media. So what we've come up with is sort of this 3-tiered plan of engagement. So depending on sort of your office and your resources, right, you can participate at a low engagement level, which essentially is using social media much like you would use mass media for message diffusion, one-way communication. If you have a little bit more resources and you want to sort of try to push your participation with social media a little bit more, we provided some strategies to think about for what we call medium engagement, which provides more opportunities for interaction. And then sort of going along further, right, we've provided some suggestions for high engagement strategies. And I think at each of these levels of engagement, it's sort of engagement from on behalf of you, sort of your office, and then as well as on behalf of the public or the audience members. So low engagement, you can expect low engagement from your audience, medium engagement, a little bit more, and so forth. Next slide. Okay, so for the low engagement strategies, as I said, we really, at this level, you can use social media much like you would use mass media, thinking about the key messages that we want to communicate, reminding parents of the importance of preteen vax, maybe thinking about how preteen vax are part of routine health care, and always sort of including the hashtags on those posts as well. Okay, that's low engagement. For medium engagement, again, we're sort of building up to include a little bit more opportunity for interaction. So here you might post prompts or questions, right, trying to engage with audiences, posting photos or infographics. I think, the best way to approach social media really is to think about it more as a conversation. So looking for those opportunities that might provoke an interaction. You might also think about reposting relevant articles from another source that would be valuable to your audience. Other ideas at medium engagement is to think about who you might connect with on social media. So if you have posts or articles that might be relevant to what we call influencers or a secondary public who also is interested in our audience, you might try to include them in the conversation by essentially tagging them. But sort of being careful not to over-tag so it becomes sort of spam-like, but just, again, trying to have a conversation with these other influencers or partners, sort of informally. And then at the high engagement, here, that's where really sort of the gold star of engagement would be to think about how we can encourage more user-generated content from audiences. So, and I think here at this level, and sort of what I really liked about the new PSAs is how fun they were, that they were trying to be a little bit more lighthearted. Because as we know, the sort of fun content is what tends to get shared more often. So we were thinking here, and I think, right, how can we have fun with this if we think about questions that might promote engagement? What does a healthy teen or healthy preteen mean to you? The second comment we wrote here is, right, what do you wish there was a vaccine for, sort of building off the PSA theme. We were also thinking about, another fun idea could be posting sort of trivia or unusual preteen health facts that might be more shareable. I think there is a community, right, online that we could tap into, especially when we think about parents as that community. Initially we were bouncing the idea around about the idea of a parent hack, hashtag parent hack. But of course, when we look up that, there are a lot of people already posting to that hashtag parent hack. So I think at this level, we're thinking about and trying to encourage that community building, sharing content, interacting with the content. And it's not easy, right? And it definitely does take time, which is why sort of it falls into this high engagement strategy, because it does take time and patience to monitor what's happening online and to post at regular intervals as well. And I think that, and so one thing actually, so we have the low, medium, high, and of course it's a menu, right? You can mix and match a little bit, sort of if you wanted to if you have the resources to really concentrate more so at lower medium level, you can do that, but you might try to venture out if you have resources to sort of post more high engagement content as well. And Are we doing questions now, Jane, or holding that till the end?
Yeah, let's make sure that Lana and Francis have time. So we'll let them go through their presentation, and then we'll go through questions and comments after that.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
So thank you. And now I would like to introduce Lana and Francis with the San Bernardino County of Public Health. Lana is a media specialist and public information officer with the county, serving in her position for 2 years, though she's been with the county for over 5. She focuses on internal and external communications with the department. Her colleague Francis is a health education specialist and the department's social media manager. He's been with the department for 6 years. I think they wanted me to tell you all that neither of them have had formal education in communications. I think the point is that these are skills all of us can learn. So with that, I will turn it over to Lana and Francis.
Thank you, Jane. Can you guys hear me okay? Everything good?
Yep, can hear you great.
Awesome. So the reason why we wanted to share that neither of us have formal communication backgrounds is just to kind of show that pretty much anyone can do this. So we'll just go ahead and start. So the next slide, please. If you don't really know anything about San Bernardino County, just a little context here. San Bernardino County is the largest county in the United States. It covers over 20,000 square miles, and we serve about over 2 million people. Our department has over 900 employees, and we have a media team, which consists of a whopping 2 people. There used to be just me by myself, but about 9 months ago, Francis came on board. And, one of the things that we really wanted to focus on was our social media presence. We've recognized that a lot of the world uses social media as a form of communication and as a way of getting their information. So we really wanted to tap into that. Next slide, please. So we utilize 4 different social media platforms, Facebook being the one that we use the most. We have the most followers there and the most engagement on our Facebook. And then we also use Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Just a little shameless plug. Feel free to like and follow us if you're interested. Next slide. So in our department, we have almost 30 different programs, and it's pretty impossible for the 2 of us to be experts in all the 30 different subjects that we cover here in public health. So each program actually has designated someone to create social media posts, and they're encouraged to fill out this template that you see on your screen. That's just where they put the content, the date, and the time that they want it posted, and then the image that's associated with each post. They'll actually send this over to Francis, since he's the social media manager for our department, and Francis will review it, make sure everything's okay, make sure everything looks good, links work, and everything. Facebook actually has a really cool feature, if you don't know yet, that you can schedule posts. So someone can actually send Francis a month's worth of posts, and Francis can actually schedule it, and then it'll just automatically post on its own based on the time and date that you have set it. And it could even be something that's posted after hours or even on the weekend, and Francis doesn't have to sit there and post something every day, all day. As far as the approval process, we don't have a formal approval process as we do, let's say, for our news releases or anything like that. Social media is real time, it's real engagement, and the formal approval process wouldn't really be efficient for us. So whoever you do appoint as your social media manager or the person that's creating the post, just make sure it's someone that you trust, someone that can write something and really recognize that this is controversial or offensive or anything like that, and just really trust the person that you appoint as your social media manager. Whenever we work with other agencies or organizations for an event or a campaign, we usually like to try to tag them. That really helps them get some exposure on our page, and we've actually noticed that they actually share our posts on their page. So then we get exposure on their followers. So we it's a give and take. We'll kind of help other programs or other agencies get some exposure on social media, and they in turn help us out too. Just a tip, if you do tag anyone, just make sure the accounts actually exist and that they're actually legit accounts. Sometimes there's a lot of fake ones out there, or just take a look at their profile to see if it's something that's good and legit. If not, by you tagging someone on your page, it kind of invites your followers to go to that page, and if there's inappropriate content or anything like that, it may or may not reflect poorly on your agency. When you're posting something on your social media, you would like to hope that you actually get engagement as far as comments goes, and likes, obviously, but we really do encourage everyone to try to engage in positive and negative comments. If someone posts on your a comment on your post and it's something positive, just, recognize that they've actually made a comment, like their comment, or say, we're glad that you find this information informative. And then if someone actually posts something negative, you want to address that too. If someone starts saying something really negative or has a really concerning question, there's a problem, you could say something like, thanks for contacting us. Let's switch this to a direct message and figure out how we could address your concern. Not only does that provide good customer service to that person directly, but it also shows people that visit your page, they can actually see that you're trying to provide good customer service, and it's not like you're just addressing all the positive ones and ignoring the negative ones. And on top of that, try not to hide or delete those comments. Obviously you're going to be violating people's freedom of speech, but you just want to make sure that you address both comments just to show that this is a real person that's on social media, and it's not just an account that's just pushing out a lot of information. And with that, social media is a public record, so I would encourage people to look into a social media archiving platform, so something like Archive Social or Page Freezer. Pretty much it just documents all the posts that you post on your social media, and it'll even document all the posts that other people comment on, and then it actually documents things that are deleted or even edited. So if anyone ever asks for a public record request on your social media, then you have that covered. In the next slide, I'll have Francis take over.
Good morning. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. As CJ mentioned earlier, the cost of the social media is basically free. And it really is, it comes down to staff time. Good social media, good engagement, that high level of performance does take quite a bit of time. You can push out a lot of information fairly quickly, but if you're looking to really engage on the social platform, it is a social platform. It does take quite a bit of time. If you're trying to respond to comments, messages, you got to invest some time with it. As previously mentioned, many of my posts come from different programs who give me a list of different things I can post out, so it's helpful to be able to get a list like that and post it ahead of time. There are a number of third-party organizations that do post things automatically or on a schedule, including a company called Hootsuite. They are a paid service, but it does take time to post these on different platforms sometimes. Facebook is the only platform that I'm aware of that you can actually schedule in advance. Twitter, Instagram, others, they tend to be more live and that you can't schedule in advance. Going from that point, there are points when you do want to invest some cash in your posts that include boosting or paid ads or sponsored ads. Next slide, please. So one of the times that we actually invest funding into our posts would be in boosting in paid ads. It's specific to an event or a promotion we're trying to reach a very specific demographic. What you see on screen is one of the health fairs that we did called Treasure Your Health. And basically, it was an event to really provide resources for those who might be affected with STDs in the local community of San Bernardino City. And for that, we paid a little bit of money to be able to actually boost that ad and get our target audience aware that this is happening. So that can be a really good opportunity to spend a little bit of money, but really target in and hone in on your demographic you're looking to share these resources with. And looking at the data that we have uncovered, we did notice that there was a larger level of engagement and more participation at this particular event. Next slide, please. So what's great is when you do have a paid or a boosted ad, you do see the logistics, you see the analytics behind what's going on. You can see who you're engaging with, how many people, if your money is really going as far as it should. And what's great is that if it's not hitting your target audience, it may not use your full amount that you have designated, so you can actually save a little bit of money there. But it's really great overall to be able to target specific demographics and really try to get your resources to the people who need them the most. Next slide, please. So moving on, lessons learned. Just kind of a quick summary of some of the things that we've learned with social media is aim for minimal text in posts. People are very visual. One of my favorite social media platforms is Instagram, specifically because it's very photo-based. I'm very visual, so many times I don't even see the text. I see the photo first. So go for things that are eye-catching, colorful. People like people. So when you see other people, especially people that look like you, it's really great to grab their attention. One place that we go to for designing a lot of our social media posts is canva.com. It's actually a free site that allows you to use hundreds, if not thousands, of different templates that you can just kind of drop and drag your own content, so that it's basically a very quick design program. So that's canva.com. Include links back to your own website. You really want people to engage with your social media and send them back to your resources on your web pages. So put yourself out there, put your web link out there so people know where to go to outside of your social media platforms. As mentioned before, tag others, share the wealth. You want to be able to engage other organizations, other agencies, and really have them share what you have and really make it a communal effort. It is, again, a social platform. Lastly, hashtag with a purpose. Research your hashtags, make sure they're legitimate. Make sure that when you create a hashtag that it's timely, it's specific, and make sure that the words in the hashtag actually make sense and they don't, when reading it, don't spell out something offensive or some other type of hashtag. Make sure it's not bogged down with way too many things in it. You want to make sure that people who utilize that hashtag actually see the content you want them to see. Next slide, please.
All right, so it's Lana again. Francis and I will be the first to admit that we're not experts in any way or form, but we've just been very fortunate to attend a lot of trainings and conferences that revolve around this area of our job. So we just wanted to share some resources with you all, and maybe it'll be beneficial for you. The first one is the Government Social Media Organization, or GSMO. It's pretty self-explanatory. It focuses really on social media in the government sector. They have a membership, gives you access to workshops and trainings and things like that, but if you don't want to sign up for a membership, we would highly recommend going to their conference. This year it's the first week of April in Nashville, Tennessee, and it's super helpful. You know, if you are in the government sector, they really focus on how to use social media on the government level, just because there's a lot of different red tape that comes with using social media for government, unlike, you know, private sector and things like that. Also look into CAPIO, the California Association of Public Information Officials. Similar concept, it's a little bit more broad. They focus more on public information officers, communicators, and similar roles, and just really teaching people and sharing information about communicating in general and not just social media. Same thing, they have a membership. It gives you access to workshops and trainings, but they also do studio tours for different news outlets, which is pretty cool. And they also have a conference every year that is the week after GSMCon, and this year it's in Newport Beach. So Francis and I are going to be at both conferences this year. So if you are coming, if you find us, come by, we'll chat, and if not, I highly encourage you to go to both or one or the other. They're both very, very beneficial. So next slide. I know we kind of went through this really, really fast, but there's our email. If you want to ask us specific questions or you just want to talk about something in particular, feel free to email us. We'll be more than happy to help.
Great. Thank you so much, Lana and Francis. And this would be a great time to take yourselves off of mute and have a little discussion about this. I'm just going to throw out a couple comment starters, just wondering whether you like the idea of organizing our social media campaign associated with Preteen Vaccine Week this way. Does it seem feasible? What challenges or barriers are you worried about? And what are you excited about this approach?
This is Steve Oates from Kern County. I love the idea of a media program, and of course we've got media people here at our health department. The thing that bothers me, however, is the back and forth communication bit. That does seem to be time intensive.
Is that something that your, I don't know what it's called in your county, whether it's your, public information office or communications office, but do they handle that or not?
They can do it. I'm not sure, and I'll have to talk to them about the follow-up communication that it might need. I don't know how difficult that might be for us.
Okay. No, that's a great comment. And that's part of why I wanted to get this conversation started early so we're not scrambling in January or February trying to find out what our organization's policy or procedures are. Thanks, Steve.
Hi, it's Amaka from HealthNet. And piggybacking on that a little bit, for me, we have a department that handles our social media, but thinking about, especially with immunizations, they might not be completely familiar with, the strength of the anti-vaxxers on that channel. And I think that for me, for either this year or maybe in the future, it would be nice to see if there was some kind of guidance on how to handle or direct some of those negative comments that might come through with posting about immunization.
Yeah, that's a good point. And that's where sort of building our community can really help so that we're sort of tracking each other's posts or, we can call in. There are definitely pro-vaccine activists out there that do pay attention to vaccine-related postings and comments on social media. And many of them are here in California, like Vaccinate California, that group, if you're familiar with them, or Dorit Reese, who's an attorney that focuses a lot on vaccine issues. And so we do sort of have this collection of people who are ready to post also. And so we can get them involved and get them on our side, and so they're following these posts also. Mm-hmm. So that should help with that. But no, it's good to hear these concerns. Anybody else? Okay, well, hopefully we will have time to discuss this further, but obviously we're running short on this hour, and I'm sorry. That's one thing with two planning calls, that we have a lot to fit in those two planning calls where we used to have like 5 or 6. I'll kind of skip through some of these. So, Cecilia, if you're with me, I'm about ready to launch the poll. So what I wanted to do is that in collaboration with Dr. Heather, we came up with these hashtags that are listed on the slide, but now they're listed on the poll. So if you want to take a look over these and choose your 3 favorite hashtags that you'd like to see us use collectively for Preteen Vaccine Week promotion on social media. Hopefully you all see the poll, and the hashtags include Preteen Vax, I support preteen health, middle school life, protect our preteens, HPvention, like a play on prevention, My Cancer Shield, shots for preteens, and Just Takes 2 in reference to 2 shots to protect against HPV-related cancers. So the poll ended. Did it? Oh, there we go. No answer. Nobody had time to. I don't know if do you all see the results? Is it possible to relaunch, Cecilia?
Yeah, give me a second.
Okay, so we'll relaunch it. Sorry, that came up very fast. But yes, I want each of you to just vote on your top 3, and now we're prepared. Okay, starting now. Last 5 seconds. I'll take a look at these responses, and you all may get another opportunity because I know a lot of people couldn't be on the call today, but this gives us an idea of where we want to go with the hashtags that we'll be using collectively for the campaign. Thank you. So I'm going to kind of skip past the next couple of slides since we are out of time, actually a little bit over time. Thank you. And I want to remind you, so the order form for materials is going to be due December 18th. So that is just around the corner. I will include it in an email that I'll send out after the webinar. But this is for local health departments to use to place your orders. A little bit different this year. Oftentimes we ask you to fax it back. We're going to ask you to email it back if you can. But if you use the link below, it is a fillable form, a PDF that you can use to fill out and order your materials. And then here's our timeline. So we just had our first planning call on December 4th. Campaign planning lasts from now through March when we observe Preteen Vaccine Week on the 3rd through the 9th. Expect finalized social media messages, social media plan, and public service announcements coming in January. Then we'll also hold a second call to be determined, but sometime in January. And I think that about covers it for today. So if anybody has any questions, comments, concerns, I can stay on the line for a couple of minutes, but I know we're over time. Thank you so much for your participation, and looking forward to a great campaign next year. Okay, sounds like there are no comments, so I will end the call. Thank you all so much, and thank you to our special guests as well, Dr. Heather and CJ and Lana and Francis. Bye-bye.